Hi there, it's Aura Pampa here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a speaking clock using Python.
The time now is 6:29.
So one thing we need to do is record the audio files with your voice that are going to make the voice for the speaking clock. Now, we're going to use a program called Audacity. It's free to download. You can search online for how to get a copy of it. But then we're going to save the files as MP3 files. We're going to record a few things. The first is the time now is. The next is counting from 0 to 59. But instead of 0, we're going to say O. And for each number, to make it sound more natural, we're going to record two versions of each number, one with an upward inflection and another with a downward inflection. So for example, the time right now is 15:46. The 15 has an upward inflection, 15, then 46 has a downward inflection, 46. Here's what it's going to sound like. The time now is 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. We're going to do that all the way to 59, and then we're going to save each file separately. Now, within Audacity, to save each file separately, once we've recorded it in one track, what you can then do is create track labels. So I'm going to select this. This would be the time now is. Let's play that. The time now is. Okay, great. Now that we've played that and we know what it is, so what I'm going to do is going to go to the edit menu and then click on labels and then add label at selection. The shortcut on a Mac is Command B. On the Windows, I suspect it would be Control B. But I'm just going to click on that for now. Then we can name it. So we're going to call this the time now is. We're going to put underscores instead of spaces. Okay. And then we're going to do that for each one. And for the numbers, I'm going to call these. So I'm going to press Command B. And I'm going to call these up or down. Put a suffix of up or down at the end of it. And for the numbers, I'm going to put 0, 1, just to make the numbering easier. 0, 1. So we started with 0 actually. So I put 0, 0 and put up. And then do the same here. 0, 0, down. Come here. 0, 1, underscore up. Command B. 0, 1, underscore down. And you do that for all the files that are left. So we know this is 2 up. You get the idea. Okay, once we have this, you then need to save this as, the way to save this would be to go to File, Export, then click on Export Multiple. Here you need to choose where you're going to save the file, save it here. The quality of the file, 192 kbps is pretty good, but if you don't want it to take too much space, you can decrease that to maybe 128 and it'll still be good enough quality. Then make sure this is selected to label. So what's going to happen is this is going to save each file as the time.mp3. So when you click on export, it'll ask you if you want to call the files anything. I have these set by default, but you don't have to. It'll save it as the name of the track title will be the name of the file. Then you just press OK. You do that for all the files. And then it tells you where it's saved. And there you go. You have the audio files ready for you to go. Okay, so in this step, what we're going to do is create the Python environment. The first thing you need to do is open Terminal on the Mac. On Windows, it would be your command line. So here, just go into the search bar and type in terminal. Okay, and click enter. That opens up the terminal. So I'm going to expand this so you can see this clearly. And then I'm going to increase the text size. To do this on the Mac, increasing the text size, you just need to press Command and the plus sign. Okay, so that's nice and big. Now let's navigate. The next step is to navigate to the folder where your project is going to be stored. To do that, you type in cd then you type in the file path. So documents, and I know I've created a folder called speaking clock. Press enter. So we're now in the speaking clock folder. The next thing to do is to create a Python environment which will house the app and all the modules and files, everything to do with this app. I'm currently using the Anaconda distribution of Python. So all you have to do is type conda create 2 dashes name and then the name of your environment. I'm going to call mine speaking clock just to make it easier. Let's arrange this so we can see this whole screen properly. There we go. Okay. Let's type that speaking clock. Once I press enter, it should tell me whether it's done. Okay, I'll say Y for yes, and it's created. And now to activate the new environment, I'm just going to type the instructions here. So all you have to type is conda activate speaking clock. Let's do that. And there you have it. We've created our Python environment. Next, we're going to create the app using Jupyter Notebooks. Great. So now that we have the environment set up, we now need to install the modules we're going to be using for this project. The 2 modules we're going to be using are Python VLC and PySimpleGUI. Python VLC or VLC is there to play the media files, and PySimpleGUI is to create the user interface that the user would interact with to save the time. So let's install these. In order to get these installed, what you need to do is you can use simple pip install, and then you just type in the name of the module. So Python VLC. And then if you want to install both right after each other, rather than having to type this over again, you can just put a space and type in the next module you'd like to install. Fantastic. It says these have already been installed because I've done it in some previous work. However, if you didn't have it installed, that would have installed it there. I'm going to type clear just to give us a nice clean blank slate to continue working from. Now that we have our Python environment set up, we need to open up Jupyter Notebook. If you haven't installed it before, you can simply just write, if I click in here, pip install Jupyter. So, okay, it says the requirement already satisfied. That was already included. If you didn't have it, you could do that. If not, you can carry on to the next step. I'm just going to type in clear here so that we have a clear screen to work off. And then I'm going to open up Jupyter Notebooks literally by typing Jupyter Notebook. Fantastic. And it's opened it up. Okay. Remember the files we created earlier? Here they are right now. All right. So you'll notice now that the files have changed. This is because a few days ago, I did record all the files needed for the voice for the speaking clock. And so I've replaced the MP3 files that I created today with those files. So the first step is to create a new notebook file. So a Python 3 notebook file. We'll give it a name, and guess what it's going to be? Speaking_clock, as we've done for all the other stuff. So let's do that. Let's give it a name. So speaking clock. Okay. So we're going to do a few things. The first thing we're going to do is kind of set up the page. So first, I'm going to put in here, this block is going to be for importing the modules that we're going to use. Okay. This next block anyway would be for the time. So getting the time and getting the audio files. The third one would be to play the audio files. Actually, instead of, okay, yeah, this is fine actually. We'll have 5 instead of 4. The next bit we're going to do is we are going to put all the code into a function. And then we're going to create the user interface. Okay. So those are broadly the steps that we're going to follow. So let's start with importing modules. The modules that we're going to be using are VLC, as I've mentioned here, datetime, VLC, time, and PySimpleGUI. I've got this written down somewhere, so I'm just going to paste them in. Okay, just to save some time. So we have import datetime as DT, and this is going to be used for getting the current time, VLC for playing the audio files, time for pausing the Python execution by a second or so that the time as it's being said sounds a bit natural. You see what I mean later on. And then we've got PySimpleGUI, which is for the user interface, which the user will be able to interact with. And just press a button, maybe press OK to hear the current time. All right, so in this next step, what we're going to do is get the time, the current time, as well as, I'm going to put that get current time, let's put that as a comment, and then determine which files to play. Okay, those are the 2 things we're going to accomplish in this block. All right, so how do we get the current time? We're going to use the date time module. So let's do that. So in order to get the time now, we're going to create a variable called time now. I'm just going to paste that in. And then we're going to use the datetime module to get the current time. Okay, so got time now, it's a new variable. DT referring to datetime, datetime, now, time. And then to test that this actually is giving us what we're expecting, let's put a print statement in there, and then let's run that. So let's run the first bit to import the modules, and then the second bit, there we go. It says the time now is 4:23:08, and all the seconds after that as well. We'll get rid of those in a bit. Okay, so that's good. So we know it's working, which is great. The next bit is that we need to be able to take out the hour portion of the time, so which is 04, and the minute portion of the time, 23. We don't necessarily need the seconds. That's fine. We can do without. So how do we do this? Well, you can extract the time. You can get the hour and minutes as integers into new variables. I'll paste that in. Okay. So how do we do this? In order to get the time, the hour of the time, you just literally take the variable that we have for time, which is time now, and put .hour next to it, and then do the same for a minute. So we've created a variable called the hour to get the hour, and the minute to get the minute, the min to get the minute. Pretty straightforward. And okay, so now we have these. If we wanted to test out this, we could just do a quick print statement. So print, let's call this hour. We'll call this the hour. Okay. And then we'll do the same for minute to be consistent. I put it in singular. If I print that, okay, say, you can see the full time here, and then we can see the hour is 4, minute is 25. So, okay, this is really good. Okay, so now that we have that sorted, let's do something. Let's move this bit to a new block, just because I think it's quite good to separate them, and we know each block just represents one, just does one thing. So Let's do that. In order to do this, I'm clicking on the block below and I'm pressing the A key just once, and that creates a new block. And then I'm just going to cut this and paste it in there. For consistency, I'll add the colon next to minute. Okay. So, and to run a block, all you have to do is either press the Shift and Enter keys or press Run up here. Okay, so that's updated. That looks good. Okay, let's come down here. So we need to determine which files to play. For this, we're going to be using a combination of VLC and some logic. So what's the logic here? Remember, if I take you back to our files, we created a few files, and for each number, we had an up and a down. When you say the number 4, like let's say you want to say 4:38, the time is 4:38, you say the 4 with a sort of upward inflection and the 38 with a downward inflection. 4:38. So that's why I recorded 2 versions of the 4. So what we need to do is basically tell the computer that when the number we're referring to is the hour, it should be the up version of the file. When the number we're referring to is the minute, it should be the down version of the file. So everything I just said, I've just put as instructions in here. So for the hours, it should choose the file with the up suffix. And for the minutes, it should choose the files with the down suffix. All right, so here is the first stab at it. So we know all the files end with .mp3. And for the hour file names, we're going to choose the string of the hour, which is over here. We have 4. So it's an integer at the moment, so we're turning that into a string by putting the words str there. We've also done the same for the minute as well. So this is what it should look like. So to test this out, let's put a few print statements. Okay, so we're just testing to see what the file names would be and make sure it's the appropriate ones. Okay, so here we have 4up.mp3 and 42_down.mp3. This works, but this may not work because if you remember our file structure, we had 04, not 4. So we need to change the way that we come up with the file names to include a 0 in front of the number for any number that is less than 10, basically. So let's get that done. So let's type in here the hour file name equals, let's make it blank for now. We're now going to use an if statement. So if the hour is less than 10, then what do we want it to do? We want the file name, our file name, to be 0 and the string that we had above, just up there. So basically we're saying add that to it. If that is not the case, then just do what we had before. All right, let's quickly test this out. So we can then say, so what I'm going to do is comment this bit out and then just test this. Okay, so that's correct. That's exactly as we want it to be. Since we've gotten it right for the hour file name, let's repeat the same for the minute file name. So let's do this. I think the easiest way to do this would be to just copy and paste this and then just change the names. So change that to min, change this to min. Okay, almost there. Okay, let's see if we've got everything here. Okay, well, let's test it out. So we're going to run this. Okay, so we have the hour here at 4 and minute at 42. So the hour file is 04 up. The minute file, 42 up. Oof, we have up, and we didn't want that. We wanted a down inflection for the minute. So let's change that. Let's put this down. If we run that now, we have an upward inflection for the hour and a downward inflection for the minute. I think that's fair. That's fair. The last thing we need to do here is clean up this code a little bit. So we're no longer using this bit of code. So we can remove that. Just to keep our code nice and tidy. Next, we'll move on to the fun bit of playing the audio files and see our clock app actually come together. It's going to be exciting. The app is nearly completed. The last, or almost the last place, is to, the last stage rather, is to play the audio files. So let's do that. There's going to be 3 parts to this. First of all, there'll be a part that says the time now is. The next bit would be to say the hour portion of the time. And then the final bit would be to say the minute portion of the time. The VLC module makes this really easy to do. That's why I chose it. So what we're aiming to do now is bring in the file that says the time now is and let that play. If we look at our files, that file is called the time now 1.mp3. So we're going to put that in. With VLC, all you have to do is create a variable. So we'll call that P, which is the file that needs to be played. We'll literally just tell it vlc.mediaplayer and open brackets, put the file name in there, close the brackets, and then all we have to do is press p.play, or type p.play rather. So let us test this out. The time now is fantastic. Okay, so that's working. That played the file as we were expecting. So now we're going to add the other portions and tell it to play the files for both the hour portion and the minute portion of the time. Okay, so I've told it to play the hour file as well. Let's try that out. The time now is... Okay, so you would have noticed that it played both the hour file name and the time now at the same time, which is not what we're after. So what I'm going to do is use the time module to tell Python that I just want you to play the next, to execute the next code after a few seconds. For this, we're going to use time.sleep. Okay. Now let's try playing it. The time now is 4. Great, so that worked as expected. It delayed it so that it then said the first part first and then said the hour file name afterwards. Now, there might be a better way of doing this using the VLC player, media player. I haven't learned it yet, but I thought this is another way to work around it anyway. So now let's add the portion for the minute. Let's add the minute portion of the time and also add the sleep, time.sleep for the minute as well. So I'll add a second maybe of time.sleep. Numbers in the brackets represent seconds, by the way. So time.sleep, I'll add 1. So just wait a second between saying the hour and then saying the minute. So let's do that. And now let's paste the code for the minute. Okay, so this is looking fine. Let's test this out. The time now is 4. The time now is 4:42. Okay, that sounded quite natural. That was good. That was good. There are a few things we want to correct for. So this seems to work fine, but I can foresee an issue where, let's say the minute is maybe, I don't know, let's say the time is 4:01, for example. We've only programmed this to say 4 and 1. So it would literally say the time now is 4:01, which isn't quite natural. So what I have done in the recording is that I have recorded just O, O, and OO, and 0 and we're going to use one or two of those to add to it so that it would say the time now is 4:01. So let's do that. Let's listen to a few of them.
Ooh. 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 Ooh.
Okay, so I have a few versions of O or 0. The double O would be used for the time. So when it's just past midnight, when it's 00:01, for example, and the other O's could just be used in terms just before the minute for any number that's less than 10. So let's implement that. We're going to use if statements to, in a sense, determine what the code does. So let's start with the hour. So we're going to change the hour portion of the time. So rather than it just automatically play the file name of 123 up for the hour, we're going to put an if statement so that it plays 00 if it's midnight, if it's just past midnight or midnight, and if it's not, then it just plays it normally. So let's do that. Okay, so if the hour is equal to 0, then play 00, the up version of it. Yeah. If it's not, play just the normal file as we're expecting, and then let there be 1 second of pause before we then play the minute, which is fine. Now for the minute portion, what we're going to do is, again, using the if statement, we're going to tell it basically to, for a number above 10, just play it as normal. If the number is less than 10, then play the O in front of it first. Okay, so what we've done here is basically said, if the minute is greater than 10, then just play the file name that we're expecting. If the minute is 0, so let's say it's, I don't know, 6 a.m., for example, it would just say the time now is 6 and not say 00 because we don't want it to say that. In normal speech, we just say 6. However, if it doesn't fulfill any of these conditions, i.e. it's less than 10, we'd expect it to say O first, and then after say, so O, give it a bit of a pause, so 0.7 seconds, and then say the number. So if it was 4:07 a.m., it would say the time now is 4:07. Let's play this again just to check it all works.
The time now is 4:42.
Okay, fantastic. That works fine. Now we've got all of this code and it seems to be all working quite well. In order to put the file or all the code basically into a function, we need to actually declare what the function is. So when using Python, to declare a function, you type the letters DEF. Then we're going to call our function, let's call it tail time. Yeah, and put 2 brackets there. Then in here, we're going to copy in all the code that we've put up above. So let's do this. I'm going to get rid of most of the comments as I do this. I need to indent it when using Python. So I'm just going to, I'll have a think about whether to leave the comments in or not. But let's keep on copying. Actually, I'll copy all of this and then just remove the verbose comments for now. Paste that in. So I'm going to remove these comments. And I'm going to indent these as well. So it all falls under the function. Just go back up, got that. Now I'm going to play the audio files. Again, copy those, paste them in here, and then put the right indentation. Fantastic. And I think we might be done. Once we have the function there, we now need to call the function in order to be able to see it working. So I'm going to type in here the function name. So we're calling it, and then once I press run, it should play as expected.
The time now is 5:58.
Okay, that seems pretty good. All right, so we can remove a few things. We don't really need all of these to show. I think I will leave the time in there, or I'll change this a little bit. So I'll let it say 5:58 and just make this a bit tidier. So if we remove, so all the prints that we did earlier can be removed. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to use it further down. I'll cut it off and use it further down, but then all the other prints can be removed. All the other print statements, I should say. So put this just above it. And so instead of saying the full time, I'm going to put the hour. Put a colon, or no, I'll put a colon, and then the minute, or the min as we called it. Let's see if that works. I'm going to comment out the function for now, calling the function for now, so I can just see if this works. So the time now is 4:42 is what it says here. That's fine. That'll be adjusted shortly once I get this running. And this actually needs to be within the function so that it would print it correctly. All right, let's see this, the moment of truth.
The time now is 6.
Okay, that's great. It did exactly as we wanted. Remember, what we planned earlier was for it to not say 600. It should just say 6. However, at the moment it is typing in here 6 and just 0 instead of 600. Rather than correct this right now, it's not the main point of this, so I'm just going to revert this back to the previous way we had it. I noticed there was an error, and this would be good to correct. So here it says min file instead of min file name. That's bound to give us an error in terms of it playing a file or playing for when the minutes are less than 10 rather. So I'm just going to update that to file name, which is what it should say. I think everything else should work as expected. Now let's try that again.
The time now is 6:20.
Okay, fantastic. I'm also going to move this portion of the print all the way up so we can see it just before we hear the time being called out. So let's try that again now. We'll just run this again.
The time now is 6:21.
Okay, that works. Okay, I need to remove it from here. One more time.
The time now is 6:21.
Okay, that sounds about right. So in this final stage, what we need to do is create the user interface that the user would interact with to hear the time spoken out to them. So there are a few things we need to do here. We're going to be using the module, the last module I mentioned at the top, which was the PySimpleGUI module. We've given it the alias SG. First thing we need to do is to create the layout. It's a very simple layout. It's literally just a dialog box with the options OK and cancel, or OK and close rather. Next, we want to create the window, which is going to house this layout. So window equals sg.window, open bracket, speaking clock. That's just going to be the title of the dialog box. And then we've told it layout, so the layout is what's going to be within the dialog box. And then finally, we need to create an event loop to tell it what to do with the items within the dialog box. And then a window.close to end the program. Okay, so here we go. It says while true, so while loop. There are two things, event and values, window.read. So if somebody presses the OK button, what should happen? So if event equals OK, then tell time, i.e. call the function above. If the event is when closed, or the person clicks on the close dialog, on the close button, it stops the program. So let's try that out. Okay, so this opened up.
The time now is 6:29.
Okay, and that's it. There you have it. That's the end of our program.